Welcome to Case Vault, where every case has a crack. A contradiction, a missed clue, a detail that should not be there. Today we're looking at a Soviet serial killer who spent 14 years walking patrols in the hunt for himself, standing in the same search lines as the men trying to catch him, until one fake note put his own handwriting inside the file. And the one thing the people closest to it never noticed. Picture a collective farm village in Soviet Belarus in the early 1980s. Low wooden houses at the edge of a road, birch trees, a sky the color of cold slate. In one of those houses, a man pulls a red cloth armband over his sleeve. He is a druzhinik, a civilian volunteer walking patrols alongside the local militia, an ordinary worker, an ordinary face. Tonight he is joining the search for a serial strangler who has been killing women along the roads of Vitebsk Oblast for years. The volunteer knows this case too well. He knows the killer drives a red Zaporozhets, the same boxy little car witnesses keep describing. He knows which roads matter. He knows where the militia is looking and where it is not. He knows why the sweeps keep coming up empty. He answers questions when investigators ask them. He keeps showing up on patrol nights. He is helpful. He is dependable. And when the case finally turns, it turns on something he thought would protect him. A note meant to send the militia after a political phantom instead of the man standing beside them. Because the strangler is wearing the armband. His name is Gennady Mikasevich. He is a collective farm worker, a Communist Party member, and for 14 years not one person on the patrol recognizes the man standing next to them. The first body turns up in May of 1971. The place is Vitebsk Oblast, a region of forests, small farming towns, and two-lane highways in what was then the Byelorussian Soviet Socialist Republic. Today the map calls it Northern Belarus. A woman is found alone on the shoulder of a rural road, strangled. No witnesses, no suspect. The local militia opens a file, records what little there is to record, and moves on to the next report. Then another body. Then another. Always women, always strangled, always found near the roads around Vitebsk or Polotsk, the two main towns in the oblast, not in the same forest. Not on the same week, scattered across hundreds of kilometers of highway and back road. The militia of each district sees its own case, its own woman, its own isolated tragedy. They do not see a pattern. Each murder is logged on its own report, handed to its own investigator, and eventually closed on its own suspect. That is the first failure of this case, and almost everything else flows from it. Soviet militia offices in the 1970s and 80s were intensely local. A murder outside Vitebsk was a Vitebsk case. A murder outside Polotsk was a Polotsk case. The files sat in different buildings in different towns, handled by officers who rarely spoke across district lines. There was no central database, no national homicide index, no easy way for one investigator to know that the body on his desk had a sister on someone else's desk, 40 kilometers away, so nobody did. The killer is using a red Zaporozhets, a small Soviet-era car, boxy and low to the ground, with a rear-mounted engine and a silhouette you could pick out from 100 meters away. It wasn't a rare car. Plenty of families in Vitebsk Oblast owned one, but it was distinctive. And red, especially, carried. Witnesses described that red Zaporozhets at more than one scene. Different villages, different victims, the same car. But because the files never come together, nobody puts the sightings together either. The cases stay separated. And the killings accelerate. By the early 1980s, Mikasevich has fallen into a rhythm. 1984 becomes his worst year. Over those 12 months, investigators now believe he strangles 12 women, one a month, on average, for an entire year, and the militia still cannot connect them to each other. 12 women, 12 case files, 12 separate theories, 12 different wrong suspects. On paper, Gennady Mikasevich is unremarkable. Born in 1947 in Vitebsk Oblast, works on a collective farm, the kind of job every village had and nobody thought about. Communist Party member. A local man with the sort of ordinary biography investigators are trained to look past. And that is not cover. That is the whole point. He is not hiding in a basement. He is not on the run. He is not some outsider drifting through the region. He is going to work, attending party meetings and moving through the same villages as everyone else. The killer investigators imagine, some wild stranger living at the edge of the map, does not exist. The man they are looking for has a routine, a workplace, and a place in the local order. Every time he finishes a murder, he steps back into that life. He is also a druzhinik, a member of the voluntary people's druzhina. The simplest way to explain it to a Western audience is to call him a civilian auxiliary, a neighborhood volunteer who helps the militia with patrols, sweeps, and door-to-door checks. The armband is real. The authority within limits is real. The pay is nothing. For most druzhiniks, the role was a way to demonstrate Soviet civic virtue. For Mikasevich, it was a seat inside the only investigation that could ever catch him. When the militia starts running sweeps for the road killer, Mikasevich volunteers. Not once, and not reluctantly. Repeatedly. Consistently. He joins the checks on owners of red Zaporozhets cars, the exact model he himself drives. He stands in the same rooms as the men hunting him and helps clear other owners from the suspect list while nobody thinks to clear him. He answers questions politely. He contributes observations. He watches the way investigators think and quietly adjusts what he does on the road. Every patrol night, the suspect pool shrinks for everyone except him. If this is the kind of case you think about for days afterward, hit subscribe. The crack in this one is about to land. What happens next is bigger than one missed suspect. Over 14 years, the Soviet criminal justice system in Vitebsk Oblast keeps producing the wrong men. Separate case files, separate districts, separate investigators. No one high enough up in the militia sees the whole shape of it soon enough to stop it. And while the system spends those years convicting men who were not there, the man who was there is helping them do it. Over the course of Mikasevich's 14-year run, at least 14 innocent men were convicted for murders he committed. 14 different men, in 14 different case files, in front of 14 different courts, charged with crimes a single stranger was actually doing. A stranger who at that exact moment was more likely than any of them to show up at the militia station and offer to help. Those 14 confessions do not appear because the killings stop. They appear because investigators keep accepting admissions that do not fit a single roaming offender. Read across the 14 files together. The confessions do not describe one consistent crime pattern. They describe what happens when a frightened man in a small interrogation room is asked the same question for long enough. They describe pressure, fear, exhaustion, and men eventually saying whatever they believe will end the questioning. The outcomes were brutal. At least one innocent man was executed for a murder Mikasevich had committed. Others died in custody before their cases could ever be reviewed. Others served years in prison for crimes that were still being committed. Women were still being strangled along the roads of Vitebsk Oblast, while those men sat in their cells. And the real killer kept driving, kept volunteering, kept pulling the red armband over his jacket and walking patrols with the very men who should have been asking him harder questions. Every time the militia closed a case on the wrong man, Mikasevich became a little safer. Every conviction narrowed the investigator's view. Every verdict gave him a few more months of freedom. And every free month meant more bodies on the shoulders of rural roads. Somewhere around the middle of the 1980s, Mikasevich decides the sweeps are getting too close. The pattern of the patrols, the rhythm of the checks, the questions the militia is starting to ask, something about it makes him nervous. So he makes a choice that will eventually kill him. He decides to give the investigators a different story to chase. He writes an anonymous letter to a local newspaper. The letter claims the murders are not the work of a lone killer at all. They are political acts, executions carried out, the letter says, by an underground anti-Soviet group operating in secret across Vitebsk Oblast. He signs the letter with a name he invents on the spot, the Patriots of Vitebsk. On paper, it gives investigators a different kind of enemy. The Soviet Union in the mid-80s is a state built on the fear of internal dissent. Any hint of an anti-Soviet underground, a domestic political cell, a network of hidden enemies, could pull the militia's attention off an ordinary criminal theory and send it toward something much larger and much more abstract. Mikasevich is trying to give the case a second shadow to chase, a shadow that looks nothing like him. Then, at his next murder, Mikasevich makes a second decision. He writes a short note. Same name, same language, same invented cell, Patriots of Vitebsk, and this time he leaves it at the scene. Not clutched in her hand, the way the story sometimes gets retold. just set down beside the body where the militia will find it. He wants them to connect the letter and the murder. He wants them to look for political killers. He thinks the note will pull the investigation further into the political lane, further from ordinary criminal profiling, further from men like him. Instead, it does something he has not planned for. It puts a physical sample of his own handwriting into the case file. And in Soviet Belarus in the 1980s, a sample of handwriting in the hands of a competent investigator is a dangerous thing to leave behind. Then the file reaches Nikolai Ignatovich, a senior investigator who does something almost nobody else in the oblast has tried. He stops looking at the cases one at a time. He pulls every related file out of every district drawer and lays all of them on the same desk. Every body, every crime scene, every suspect, every confession, all of it at once. Ignatovich spreads the files across his desk and sees what the local officers have been too close to notice. The same region, the same victim profile, the same method, the same red car cited again and again by different witnesses in different villages, and a set of confessions that read together do not sound like 14 different killers. They sound like 14 different men saying whatever would make the questioning stop. The pattern has been there for years. Nobody above district level had ever stacked the files high enough to see it. Ignatovich rejects the prevailing theory outright. He tells the local militia something almost nobody in the Vitebsk files wants to hear. The cases are not separate. They never were. One man has been doing all of this. The same offender. The same method. The same red car. 14 years. One killer. Dozens of women. And every confession already on file for one of those murders is, by simple logic, wrong. He has one physical lead nobody else has seriously chased, the note signed Patriots of Vitebsk. So Ignatovich authorizes something extraordinary. A handwriting dragnet across Vitebsk Oblast, every adult male resident pulled in, seated at a table, given a short dictated sentence to write out by hand. One sample per man. The whole region on paper, one loop and one stroke at a time. Think about what that takes in the middle of the 1980s in a Soviet oblast. No computers comparing handwriting on the back end, no digital archive, no automated loop and stroke analysis, just a team of human forensic handwriting experts in a room comparing samples by eye one at a time against a single short note pulled from a murder scene. A task that would exhaust a room of specialists in a week needs to be done on a scale most modern agencies would still find hard to imagine. They do not know what they are looking for. They only know what they are looking at. The same short dictated sentence, written out by one hand after another, stacked in paper piles across the investigation room. Samples from farmers, samples from factory workers, samples from adult men across Vitebsk, Polotsk, and the villages between them. And samples from Druzhiniks, too, the same civilian volunteers who had spent years helping the militia look for the killer. By the time the experts reach the end of the work, Soviet investigators have compared 556,000 handwriting samples. 556,000. And exactly one of them, one single sheet of paper, out of more than 500,000 matches the note signed Patriots of Vitebsk. The matching sample belongs to a man the investigation has already met. A collective farm worker from Vitebsk Oblast. A Communist Party member. A rank-and-file Druzhinik who has walked patrols with the very men hunting the road killer. A volunteer who has sat in on sweeps of Red Zaporozhet's owners, helping clear other drivers from the suspect list, while the driver they were looking for was the man helping clear it. Gennady Mikasevich. The man on the patrol was the man in the case file. The strangler had been helping the militia search for himself for 14 years in the same rooms, in the same cars, standing beside the same investigators, and his own hand on a scrap of paper at a crime scene was what finally gave him up. On the 9th of December 1985, Soviet investigators arrest Gennady Mikasevich. At first, he denies everything. Not my note, not my handwriting, not my car, not my crimes. The standard script, delivered by a man who has had 14 years to rehearse it. Then he confesses, and once he starts, he does not stop. Days of interrogation turn into a running list of victims. Investigators put the confirmed count at 36 women. Mikasevich himself confesses to 43. Some estimates run higher, but the figure the case law finally locks in is at least 36 confirmed and 43 acknowledged by his own mouth. 36 women on the shoulders of rural roads. 43 names in a confession that takes days to finish. Investigators walk back through the 14 wrongful convictions one at a time. The men who are still alive are released. The men who died in custody before their cases could be reviewed are cleared on paper. The man who was executed for a crime Mikasevich had committed is cleared too. The record is corrected. The damage is not. If you've made it this far, you're the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Drop a like and let's close the case. On the 25th of September, 1987, Gennady Mikasevich is executed by firing squad. He is 40 years old. In the language of the Soviet court, justice has been served. In the language of the case file, a 14-year manhunt is finally closed. In the language of the families who buried 36 women along the roads of Vitebsk Oblast, nothing has been returned. Nothing can be. The arithmetic of this case is hard to hold in one hand. At least 36 confirmed victims. 43 confessed. 14 innocent men convicted of his crimes, at least one of them shot for something Mikasevich did, others dead in custody, others serving years in prison while the real killer was still driving his red Zaporozhets through the oblast, and a murderer who kept turning up inside the search, wearing the same volunteer armband as the men trying to catch him. There is a final image this case leaves behind. Not the firing squad, not the confession, not the red car on a rural road, the armband, a red strip of cloth, ordinary enough to mean trust, ordinary enough to let one man stand inside the hunt for years. It is the clearest symbol in the file of how badly the investigation misunderstood its own suspect, and the only thing that finally beat him was a scrap of paper, his own handwriting on it, matched, one sample at a time out of 556,000. 14 years, 14 wrong men. One note that put the killer's own handwriting into the file. That's the case. If you see things other people miss, hit subscribe. Case Vault drops a new one twice a week, and the next crack is sharper than this one.